Hey guys, it's Cody Jones with Jangus Genetics LLC, and I just wanted to talk on a point here real quick. We had a new subscriber, and I shot a video last week. I think I posted it about how you gotta follow your grazing principles. You gotta keep up with your you gotta have a grazing chart. You gotta have a plan, and that's got to include rotation. So you don't want to come back too early and damage the grass. You don't want to leave your cattle too long and let them get a second bite and damage your grass. And you don't want to over rest your grass, or you'll produce less grass that way. So those are the kind of the three principles. I've been reading Ranching Like a 12-Year-Old. It's a great book. Check it out. And somebody came back and they asked, well, what happens if it's already too late and everything's already heading out? So this is a question I'm going to answer with my experience. So I'm in Missouri. We're in the tall fescue belt. And so everything that you see me, 99% of the grass that I'm running on is tall fescue. I don't have a lot of improved forages. I'm not running on cover crops yet. I haven't put in the native warm seasons. A lot of people are doing that, and that's all great. But for me, I'm mostly running on fescue pastures. Fescue, I like to have little red clover if I can get it. So what does that mean for me? That means that this grass is growing just as fast as it could absolutely grow. And its number one goal, fescue is a cool season grass. The number one goal in the springtime is to get headed out. So it usually does that around June, July. Most people you're going to see in the conventional farmers, they're going to mow this 2 or 3 times a year with a rotary mower, a batwing, 8, 12, 15 foot, whatever they get, 21, I guess. And so you see a lot of people doing that. And I want to try to manage the grass with livestock. That's what we're all about here. And so there's a few ways that I can do that. I can move my cattle faster. I've got a custom grazing piece in my business here. I brought on some custom grazing cows. You can check out some of those videos, some heifers. And so we kind of spread the cows out in the springtime. I don't necessarily like spreading them out, but you have to do that for the way I'm running them. And I'm not going to put all my registered cattle together with my dad's registered cattle together with the custom grazing cattle. I've also got to pull my bulls, so I'm not calving in January and those kinds of things. So also the sheep fencing needs to be better. So I've got quite a bit of complexity to what I'm doing. I recommend that you don't do that most of the time, but in this scenario, you can spread your cows out. If you got one big bunch, maybe make 2 just to cover the ground, because our goal here is to keep it vegetative. The grass's goal is to put a seed head on and reproduce. And when it does that, if you let it do that, then it stops growing. Your production after that is significantly decreased. And so as a grazer, our number one goal is to keep it from heading out. On fescue, we do have a couple of other things that we're thinking about. The seed heads, of course, a lot of problems with pink eye. They get in the eye, they irritate the eye. The cattle are down there trying to get the green grass that's growing underneath it, the shoots at the bottom, because once your grass heads out, it's basically the stem is straw. So it's not any good for the cattle. So I remember Ian Mitchell Innes talking about this in South Africa. You'll starve cattle on standing forage. It's basically like feeding them straw. Once it gets headed out, the seeds fall out and they're basically trying to survive on straw. You can actually starve them to death. So that's the one thing I do worry about. That's not a big deal here for me. But if you're to have that kind of environment, make sure that you're doing a forage test if you're worried about it. If your cow patties are getting much bigger than, this during the growing season, or anytime, 2 inches, it's not necessarily a good thing. You might want to adjust your feed intake. So that's a good way to measure it without having to, before you send in a test, feed sample. So the seed heads cause pink eye a lot of times. They're irritating them. You can get infections if you're letting your grass grow too long. I've never seen this personally. I don't know if it's just because we never had this much grass before, or in a long time, or what, but fescue foot, short tails, those kinds of things. So the other big thing about tall fescue is it's got what's called an endophyte. So it's endophyte infected Kentucky 31 fescue, and that's just a fungus. And what it does is it gives the cattle a low-grade fever, and we find that the highest concentrations of endophyte in this grass is in the seed heads and the base of the plant. So if you're grazing seed heads, you let it get too mature, you're going to be having a higher concentration of the endophyte. And if you're grazing below 4 inches, 4 to 6 inches, you're going to have a higher concentration. Your cattle are going to suffer. That's why in Missouri, yeah, it gets hot, but you see a lot of cattle are hanging out in ponds. They got their tongues hanging out. It's that endophyte is a big contributor to that, and it's just raising that body temperature on an animal that's already pretty warm, and have a lot of body mass. So provide plenty of shade. But so those are things that we really want to manage for. Also, not to mention the fact that if you let it get all headed out, again, you're decreasing your production, because once that plant has done its job, it wants to rest for the summer. So once it's produced a seed head, another grazer that I respect a lot and follow is Greg Judy. And he's going to say, I've heard him say before, that if you get where your grass is headed out and you don't get that covered in the springtime, just leave it until the fall. And that doesn't always work for me. So in the past, the first time I was on this rental farm, we actually came in too late. And so what we did is we have a few options. Yeah, you can mow it. Again, once it's headed out, you're just spending money. I got really stressed about it. I did have some pink eye issues. We worked through those. And then 2 weeks later, we had a big rain. Stop that. My gimbal's messing with me. 2 weeks later, we had a big rain or a big wind event, and all the seed heads fell out, and we were back to grazing again. So as far as the seed heads go, if you wait 2 weeks, a lot of the times, once it's fully mature, that seed head will be gone. And you don't have to worry about that again, as long as it's a plant that you're not necessarily worried about propagating. And so you can mow it. Had another guy that grazes cattle in a regenerative way. So why don't you just ted it? Because you can ted it faster and cheaper than you can mow it. I've seen people roller crimper it with varying success. There's a lot of mechanical tools you can do, but if you're just trying to do it with cows, one thing I would do is speed those cows up, get them going through, especially if your forage quality is decreased. Just hit it hard, hit it fast, keep the manure patties light, kind of top it all, and then kind of, slow down and restart your grazing again. Kind of watch that recovery on the grass so you know how to do that. The other thing you could do if you want to slow them down or you don't want to speed up is increase the animal impact. So especially if your forage is decreased in value and you feel like you need to feed a little bit anyway, or supplement something, you can unroll hay, or you could feed cubes. You can create animal excitement, walk them up and down, just mash all that stuff on the ground, put that carbon back in the ground, and then when you come back around, that's feed that's been put into feeding the soil microorganisms. A lot of that's going to be gone. You're going to create more grass, put carbon back in the soil, and you're going to see a lot of cool things there. So that's what I would do. Again, this is Missouri. We're getting like 43 inches of rainfall on average. We've been in a severe drought the last 3 years now, because we're not out of it yet, for sure. So, keep that in mind. That's the way I would handle it here in Missouri in this environment. You may want to talk to some grazing professionals in your area, get a different opinion. The subscriber that was asking this question was in Texas. And so, we're talking about different ideas here. If you're talking about running one cow per 30 acres, and you're only going to touch that piece of ground once a year or once every year and a half, I really don't have any knowledge about that. So I don't want you to go in and think that these are the things you need to do. I would think that the principles would still apply, but the application would be a little different. You know what I mean? And so I don't want to mislead you on that. But those are the things that I would do here. Again, we're running, for perspective here, I think our county says you can run 2 cows per acre. And I think they're feeding a lot of hay doing that. I kind of shoot for 3 to 4 without feeding much hay. My goal with 4 acres per cow, I would expect to need to bring in a custom grazing piece to help manage in the spring, keep that grass from heading out, or graze, some of the yearlings that I've got, and some of those kinds of things. With probably 2 bales of hay with 3 acres per cow, I'd feel pretty comfortable with that. So that's where I'm coming from. I just want to share those thoughts and ideas, kind of what I would do here in Missouri in my environment in tall fescue. A lot of the issues that we deal with, if you wait 2 weeks, live through it, you'll see that there's not a big deal, as big a deal as you thought, hopefully. Like I said, the one time that we were grazing and everything was headed out, I just waited 2 weeks and all the seed heads were gone. All my problems went away. And in that instance, Greg Judy probably would have been right for me. If I'd have gone back to a paddock that had been rested for 30 days, 40 days, whatever the proper period is, stayed in there for a week or two while the rest of the seed heads fell out and then moved on, because I still had green grass growing underneath those seed heads. That would have probably been a good option for me. So anyway, I'm learning. Still got a lot of knowledge to gain and a lot of experiences to have, but you guys let me know what you think. Let me know what works in your environment. Let me know what you've seen, because I think there's a lot of value in sharing this. One of the reasons I started this YouTube channel is so that we can learn together. I can meet you guys and grow. I've had a few subscribers call me and ask me some questions. I always think that's kind of fun. And so appreciate you guys. Like, subscribe, follow for more, and hit that bell if you want more videos like this and want to get notified about them. Thank you.